Hello again, feral friends and fellow nature nerds, and thank you for tuning in to this Dirt Dispatch number 43. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara. So I have some sad news to report to start with today. One of my neighborhood great horned owls was killed recently in an apparent collision with a vehicle. Now, I'm not sure if this was one of the ones that I have videos of on my social media pages, but it's certainly one that I would have heard calling at some point, I have no doubt. It was found not too far away by my neighbor, who, knowing that I salvage roadkill to have biofacts for my in-person programs, called me right away, it's a good thing. So a disclaimer here, I do possess a federal migratory bird salvage permit, so it's legal for me to salvage birds and their parts for educational purposes. Under the terms of that permit, all of my salvaged bird biofacts don't technically belong to me. They're the property of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I'm required to use them at least 12 times a year or dispose of them properly. Now, I've said before that doing salvage gives me a lot of mixed emotions. On the one hand, I hate seeing anything killed by run-ins with vehicles. It's not a natural death. It's not a natural part of the food web. On the other hand, getting something unique that I can use to educate people is, well, kind of exciting. And something that's been hit by a car that's still in relatively good shape is a pretty rare find indeed. Now, this owl sadly appeared to have broken its neck in the collision, but that means that it was intact. Nothing run over, nothing smashed or otherwise mangled. So what that means is I was able to take it to a taxidermist to be mounted, someone who specializes in bird and knows the ins and outs of the migratory bird salvage permit. I would have much rather continued to see and hear it in my trees, but the silver lining is that it's going to make an amazing addition to my collection of biofacts, and it will live on educating people about how incredible these owls are. Now, in the meantime, I've been hearing and occasionally catching glimpses of at least 3 other great horned owls hanging around, usually just before sunrise. This is how it sounded the other morning. And that's because, unlike other birds, this time of year is when great horned owls start their courtship displays, loudly calling to each other. Now, great horned owls generally mate for life, but between the time when their young become independent and it's time to mate again, they just kind of associate with each other a little more loosely. The pairs then rekindle their romance in the winter, performing a milder courtship ritual to strengthen their pair bond before they mate again. Now, during this courtship in the late fall or early winter, the male attracts the attention of his mate by hooting emphatically while leaning over with his tail folded or cocked and puffing up his white throat. It's thought that this white throat serves as a visual stimulus in the low light conditions typical of when they're courting. Males often hoot emphatically for about 4 to 6 weeks right towards the end of the year, but the period when females also hoot is usually only about a week to 10 days. But all this happens in the fall because they start setting up their nest much earlier than other birds, usually taking over an abandoned nest from a hawk or other large bird or finding a large tree cavity. Now, owls don't build their own nests, by the way. Maybe just add some feathers and call it good. In the more southerly part of their range, great horned owls might lay eggs as early as November, but here in Wyoming, they're probably not going to lay until maybe March at the earliest. So why so early? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Since great horned owls are large birds, it takes them longer to grow and mature than, say, a songbird. Young great horned owls have to master complex hunting maneuvers. Even though they have superb senses, researchers have found that great horned owls can hear a mouse rustling from 900 feet, 274 meters away. Hunting still involves learning, trial and error. We tend to think that animals are born with all the skills they need to survive, but That's just not the case. They need to learn and practice skills just like we do. So this earlier hatching means that they're ready to practice their flying and hunting skills when the weather is mild and prey is abundant. But early nesting comes with risks too. Keeping eggs warm when it's snowing and the temperature is below freezing is tough. If the egg gets too cold, they won't hatch, which is why most birds wait until it starts to warm up in the spring. So hopefully what I've been hearing is an indication that the one that died wasn't one of the mated pair, and that this spring we will once again have owlets here at Dispatches HQ. Okay, so let's turn our attention to nature in the news. You've probably heard recently that raccoons are becoming quote-unquote domesticated, and you've been excitedly anticipating a day in the near future when you can run down to the local pet store and get yourself a raccoon. Well, hold up there. I know that the headlines made it sound like that, but there's more to it, or maybe less to it than that. Anyways, here's what's going on. A team of biologists looked at nearly 20,000 images of raccoons that were uploaded to iNaturalist and found an early indication of what's called domestication syndrome. Emphasis on early. Now, domesticated animals often share some common physical traits like white spots or curly tails, floppy ears, and smaller facial skeletons. What the researchers found was that city-dwelling North American raccoons have snouts that are 3.5% shorter on average than that of their rural counterparts. That's it. Not that that finding isn't significant, but it's not the domesticated raccoons coming soon to a pet store near you, the way the headline made it sound. The hypothesis is that the key ingredient is garbage. Trash lures the animals closer to people. It's thought that dogs started out as wolves coming to get human leftovers, and cats came to get rodents that were coming to get human trash. And once wild animals start spending more time around people, they start getting less afraid. And then the process of natural selection joins the conversation and tends to pick animals that are bolder and more friendly. And then the animals might start showing physical signs of domestication syndrome. But like I said, this is not a fast process by any means. Domesticating dogs took thousands of years. So give it till the year, say 3075 before you start checking your local Petco for house raccoons. But like I said, it is interesting, and it was all made possible by community science on the iNaturalist app. So a bit of a side note, I'm not sponsored by iNaturalist, but I am an official iNaturalist ambassador and big fan of the app. I got introduced to it in 2019 when I first started doing educational programs for Fontenelle Forest Nature Center in Omaha, Nebraska. If you're not familiar with it, it's an app where you can take a picture of a plant, a bird, a bug, a mushroom, whatever, and it can help you identify it. And also other iNaturalist users can help identify it. And all that community science can lead to some really interesting big S science. Like, for instance, the rediscovery of the greater chestnut weevil, thought to be extinct after chestnut blight killed most of the American chestnut trees by the 1960s. Or the identification of a new species of cicada and 2 new species of scorpions in California. Or helping prove the theory that timing plays a crucial role in the strategy of certain butterflies that mimic other species that are toxic or unpalatable to predators. Specifically, that unpalatable butterflies emerge earlier in the season, which gives predators time to try and eat them and learn that their patterns signal, hey man, don't eat me, I taste bad. Very cool stuff, powered by community science. Just regular people out there getting dirty. And on that note, my friends, we find ourselves at the end of this Dirt Dispatch. If you want to support the podcast, there are many ways you can do that. First of all, you can become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get some free Dispatches from the Forest merch. Find all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can donate through PayPal using my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com, which is, of course, also the best way to contact me if you have any questions, comments, or a request for a future episode. If you want to send a check, That's not a problem. Send me an email and I'll let you know what my mailing address is. You can also donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd. Go check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatches from the forest. Click on products, find something you like. Finally, you can follow Dispatches from the Forest on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dirt Dispatches is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.